We're back with another episode of Sox Talk with Will Middlebrooks. I'm your host, Greg Dudek of NESN.com, joined always by the 2013 Red Sox World Series champion. Will, we haven't talked in a while. A lot's been going on. First of all, how you doing, man?
I'm good. We got to Detroit last night. So easy flight over, about an hour and a half flight from Kansas City. Got it in a decent hour, which is nice. We're all rested up, ready to go.
You finally got your first break last week of the season. It felt like
Yes.
nice little rest the legs, rest the voice, getting some family time. But you're back with the team now. You join them at let's say, very interesting time right now with the whole Rafael Devers saga that's going on. I guess just first of all, just to jump right into it, what do you kind of make of everything that's been going on with the first base situation? Obviously, a hole there now with the Tristan Casas injury.
Yeah, so first things first, it's really unfortunate just to lose your first baseman in Tristan Casas, right? And I know he's off to a tough start. I know things weren't going great for him, but you never want to see anybody go down like that and be lost for at least the rest of this season. Patellar tendon reconstruction is never an easy rehab process. Um, that was the second one I'd seen at Fenway. So Casas, obviously his injury, but then I remember Garrett Richards. We were playing against the Angels. Oh man, it had to have been like 2014 or so, and he was covering first base, and he slipped over there and had the same injury. It was awful, awful, right in front of our dugout, obviously. So, um, but yeah, as far as the Raffy situation goes, we were going to talk a few days about it, and I said, Greg, let's let this die down a little bit and like
Yeah.
let the smoke clear a little bit before we really dig into this. And since then, John Henry and his group flew in to Kansas City.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
just been more developments. Good call by you
I
holding
mean,
off.
I can't remember any situation John Henry's hopped on a plane and gone to see a player, but this is also a player in Rafael Devers who's making 300 plus million dollars. It's the biggest contract in franchise history. So that's his money, right? And it
Yeah,
matters.
a
And this is
lot of money
one
too.
of, if not the face of your franchise, if he wants to be or not, he is, and everyone realizes that. So my thought process on this whole thing is there's two sides of it, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, I think ultimately you paid him for his bat. You never paid him to be a defender. He at the time you paid him, he was your third baseman, and that was the plan, but he was never going to be an above average defender. I think we can all agree on that. He was going to
Yeah.
be serviceable at best. He was going to make the plays right at him. But he wasn't going to give you a lot of range. He wasn't going to win a gold glove. He wasn't going to have all these crazy metrics defensively, right? Um, and obviously he loses his job in spring training when Bregman comes in. That was a big deal about him moving to third base because he wants to be the third baseman. I get that. That's the one side of this is like there's a human aspect that I think we don't do a good job in the media and sometimes as a fan base of accounting for is the human side of this of ego and pride and embarrassment a little bit. And
Hmm.
so he loses his job at third base eventually comes around to the whole DH thing and he's finally settling in. He's finally getting results. He has this routine and now the team says, "Hey, we need you to play first base." Now, here's where the other side comes in. This is the optics of the whole situation from the fan base and everyone around baseball is this is a guy making $30 million. Dollars. They say jump, you say how high. That's how it should
Hmm.
be, right? That's how we look at it. And you would think that would be the case. And Rafi clearly standing up for himself from what we know and saying, look, you've made me change position once. I'm finally in this position and doing well and things going great. And you want me to change again. And I think part of this is not wanting to have to learn a position in the middle of a season and be embarrassed in a live game because the lack
I
of
mean,
ex
I think that that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not like he gets to learn this in spring training. Like he gets to learn it in the
oh
big leagues. Like
right.
not exactly the easiest environment to learn a new position.
Right. And everyone's like and most people say, oh, it's so easy. Like he played third base, he can play first base. Part of that is right. Like I made that move. I've
Yeah,
played
I remember you
third
talked
base.
about it, I think last
Yeah.
season that hey, like you got to learn a little bit new footwork and all that, but like it's doable.
It's doable, but it would take time. So like catching the ball and flipping to the pitcher or making the ball the plays on balls, that's not an issue. It's the read with the second baseman. When do I go? When do I just go to first to cover? It's the footwork around the bag, which I found was the hardest because a lot of times with metrics and positioning, like if a right-hander's up there, he's going to be way off the bag in the four hole, and you have to get real comfortable with a ball being hit, you sprinting to the bag with your back to the play, turning around, finding the bag, finding the defender and the ball in the air all at the same time and making the right angle with your step and working your feet. That was the hardest part. So it's not just this isn't like high school baseball where it's like just go over there and just cover the bag and,
Yeah.
and make some scoops down low and you'll figure it out. This is the big leagues. And if he plays it, he wants to be good at it and he doesn't want to hurt the team. Um, I think at this point, I I think eventually we see him with a first base glove. I think we sometime in the next week or two start see him working over there. I think the biggest kicker here is if Masataka Yoshida isn't ready to play, which we've seen, we thought he was going to be ready to just hit. Obviously, the throwing has been an issue. We've seen the
Yeah.
videos of him throwing in clear pain. So that's a setback. But I haven't heard any more of him taking live at bats. So I feel like they haven't said they shut him down, but it feels like they shut him down.
Which is strange because he did hit during spring training. I mean, he was I think
Right.
11 games or something like
Clearly,
that.
something has flared up. They haven't really
Yep.
talked about it. So, excuse me. But I think if Massa was ready, then they would be much more aggressive with this and he would be
Okay.
taking ground balls right now because then you activate it just gives you more roster flexibility, right?
Yeah.
It allows you to bring in Massa to hit and then and you can kind of rotate the DH, right? Um, it also I don't know. I don't want to say it opens up a door for a Roman Anthony just because
Yeah.
I doubt they would want to just bring him up and just DH him at this point
Yeah.
because he's 20 years old. You don't want to really do that.
Oh, you don't believe the narrative? He can't play the outfield?
He's 20 years old. There's so many things that can change when you're that young in
Yeah.
professional baseball. He's still developing, and part of that's the defensive side of things. So, so if I think for right now, what I think is going to happen is Masa's not ready again. Whatever's going on with him, that's which is crazy to me, but is what it is. So at this point, you're getting some really good results out of Rafi lately. I mean,
Yeah. He's been great at the
in the
like you
words of
said, he finally
Dave
kind of
O'Brien.
settled in.
Yeah, in the words of Dave O'Brien, he's swinging the shillelagh. All right. He's smoking the ball. And I think part of this is coming in reaction to all this going on. He was like, all right, you guys gonna fly in to talk to me, you're gonna push me, you're gonna this and that. Watch this. Which I
Yeah.
kind of love. I kind of
Uh,
love it. It kind of like
I
sparked him a little bit.
I mean, I think if you want to like you said, I'm sure some of the fan base felt a certain way about his comments on what was that Thursday night or Wednesday or whenever the end of that series at home, and then like you said, for him to respond in the way he has, like that gets some
It's
fans
really
back on your
impressive.
side.
I think for a, a lot of players, it would have gone the other way around because that amount of pressure, that amount of anxiety around playing the game with the ownership there and the front office and everyone being all over you, all over media, telling you how terrible of a person you are, how bad of a teammate you are. That's something also I want to touch on. I've talked to several guys in the clubhouse off the record, like, hey, what's up? How are we
Yeah,
really feeling about this? Guys that I trust, guys that trust me. And they're like, we don't care. We want Rafi to hit. When
yeah,
he hits, we win. That
and that's
that's
what
the
they're.
that's the mindset in the clubhouse is like, we don't care. We want to win. And I think that they've done a great job of not letting it become a distraction. I think they've done a great job of kind of and that's how you have to if you attack this in a different way from a veteran leadership role in a clubhouse and it becomes an issue inside your clubhouse, it becomes clicky in there and it rots you from the inside out. And I think there's some older guys in there that realize that and they say, hey, this is how we're going to go about it. We love Rafi. Rafi's been a good teammate to us. This might look terrible on the outside, but we need to win and we need him if we're going to win. And you know what? If this is how he feels, we're going to have his back and we just got to go play baseball. This is an everyday sport. You cannot
Yeah,
let distractions get in the way. So I think the clubhouse has done a really good job of handling this.
I was going to ask you about the clubhouse because when something like that happens, and like you said, I think everybody knows the reason why Rafael has the contract he has is because of him being able to, hit 30 home runs, drive in 100 RBIs a season. That's where he's most valuable to the team. Not if he's playing third, not if he's playing first, not if
Totally.
he's, on the moon or whatever. It's him in the, batter's box slugging homers, hitting tall fields. But the clubhouse aspect, I mean, to me is interesting, and you obviously touched upon it. Like when that happens, is that something like guys are seeing it on social and the next day they have to have a meeting about it? Or like how does that all just kind of get like sorted out? Is it just like, hey, you talk to like you're during BP, like these guys are talking like, hey guys, let's not make it a distraction sort of thing.
Yeah, I think there's multiple conversations that go on. I don't know if there's not just going to be like a team meeting, but like, hey guys, this is what we're doing. It's just kind of word gets around. You talk, everybody talks. It's a closely knit clubhouse. That's how most teams are. And look, they just I don't want to say Raffy being Raffy because I don't want to put a negative light on that because he's not a bad guy in that clubhouse at all, and no one views it as that. I'm not saying it didn't maybe bother some people early on, but I think there has become an understanding of the situation, and they're totally fine. And by the way, I want to point out, so he started with that 0 for 19 with 15 strikeouts, like historically worst start ever, right?
Yeah, it doesn't get
Have you
much
seen
worse
his
than that.
numbers since then? Since that 0 for 19, he's hitting like 320. He's got an OPS just under 1,000. And what I think really stands out a lot to me, since then, he's got 27 walks and 32 strikeouts.
It's good. You kept those
19%,
receipts.
19% strikeout rate. So I would say he's more than back. And I think like
Yeah.
the power surge is about to happen. That homer he hit in Kansas City to dead center, like balls don't go up there. Like I've seen Trout go up there. It's like 440, 450 feet. And it was middle in and down and he hit it to center. And I was like, okay, that's a good sign.
Yeah. Hey, if I think again, like if he wants to prove a point now in some way, Red Sox fan, he just starts hitting the ball all over the ballpark and hitting out of the ballpark. Red Sox fans and the Red Sox certainly, most
Yeah.
importantly, they'll take that. But I guess too, with all this Rafi stuff, it also leaves the question of what ultimately do they do at first base, I guess, in the meantime. And then I guess if he doesn't transition over the first, because while Romy, I think we can all agree, Romy Gonzalez, nice player. They have Abraham Toro. Now they got Nick Sogard. I know Romy's on the IL now. How what's the solution now? I guess do you ride it out with Sogard and Toro, or it feels like I mean, to me, it feels like they need an upgrade over there.
Um, yeah, I do, but I think the most important thing right now, obviously, in a perfect world, you get a guy who can play defensively and put up offensive numbers, right? Or you just have a perfect platoon that left-right matchup, this and that. I think Romy's obviously on the IL. He's got that thigh bruise right now. He'll probably be back at
Yeah,
the
minimum,
minimum.
right?
Yeah, I would think so. I talked to him the other day, and he's like, "I'm sore, but I'm good. But like, I just need a couple days, and if, you can't just sit a guy for a couple days and not IL him because you have a short bench. So, he'll be fine. Um, I think it's just going to be kind of what more of the same, like platooning, um, utility guys, and Sogard has looked pretty good for a couple days. He's had some really good at bats, and
Yeah.
I think something we saw from Toro, which I like Toro as a defender, but I didn't think he was doing very good job on like picking low throws. He missed a few of those, and Sogard has caught those. So I don't know when Romy comes off, maybe Sogard stays.
Okay.
So I think we're going to see kind of just a rotation of a Sogard and Romy over there for now. And look, if other guys are hitting, it's not going to matter. Let's be
Yeah.
honest. You need a guy to catch the ball over there. You don't need a gold glover. You just need someone to catch the ball, someone to make the right reads, play some bunts here and there, be a good cutoff, and pick some low throws, and just have some good at bats at the bottom of the lineup. Let's be honest. We have our main guys that are going to bang. If they hit, that's going to be irrelevant.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was either you or Monaco said it on Sunday's broadcast. Just Nick Sogard, kind of professional at bat in there, can hit. Oh,
Yeah.
and kind of weird too. You don't see it as much anymore. Can hit from both sides of the plate,
Yeah, and he
which
struggled at AAA, which is crazy, but that's just how it is. Some guys, turn it on when they get to the big
yeah,
leagues.
gives them a little more roster flexibility.
Yeah,
Speaking of roster flexibility, the big question, and I'm sure you've answered this already a hundred times, is what the heck are the Red Sox going to do with Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer? Why aren't they up in the big leagues? When are they going to get to the big leagues? Everyone's just waiting for these two,
of
young
course.
guns to get up there.
Well,
I mean, Well, what I guess ask you again. I know you probably have your spiel probably like written out already. What you say when you get asked this question, but when are we gonna see him, Will? When are
I'm
we gonna?
honest. I'm honest about this stuff. I think Wilyer Abreu and Cedar Rafael are making this a lot tougher than the organization expected.
Yeah,
Right. I know Willier won a Gold Glove last year, and his ceiling is really high, and they really like him. This is more about Rafaela, but they also signed him to an extension, right? Paying
yeah,
him a
eight
good amount of
years.
money. But Rafaela has made some really big adjustments lately. You know, the last couple
Walking a
weeks
little bit more,
he's
right?
walking more. The last couple weeks he is making a lot better contact. He's still really aggressive. He's like a 58% first swing percentage. League average is 30.
Oh, jeez.
So it's literally twice as much. But the thing is with him is he's not chasing out of the zone nearly as much. The plate discipline has been better to your point. The hard and with that comes more hard contact and more hits. So the results are showing up. We don't have to discuss his defense. I think it speaks for itself. He's
Yeah,
leading like center fielders in defensive run saves. So he if he plays 145 games in center field or 140 games, good chance he could win even a platinum glove just with the numbers he
oh
puts
well.
up defensively. So um, it's a thing with him too, is what people don't really want to talk about because you want to focus on his offense at times being his deficiency because you want to bring up a Roman Anthony, but Roman's going to hit. I get that. But if the rest of this lineup is doing its job, you're not really leaning on Rafaela for much offense, and he's there for his defense. Now, when he's going, great because he's a second leadoff hitter, right? In the nine hole,
Yeah,
he
nine
gets
hole.
on
Yep.
base, he uses his speed to steal bags and get in scoring position, and it flips the lineup over. So right now, the offense looks really good because Narvaez and Rafaela are swinging the bat well at the in the bottom third of the lineup, and then all of a sudden there's ducks on the pond for your big guys coming up to the plate, so
Yep.
that matters. Um, Willier is just a really good player. I think we,
So
we we realize that at this point. So as
yeah.
far as Roman and Marcelo go, look, injuries are inevitable, and I think that's what it's going to take to be called up at this point. And with Marcelo, I think it could be injuries at third base, shortstop, or second base,
Okay.
which could get him to the big leagues for an opportunity. With Roman, I was getting real honestly, I was getting really close to wanting Sadon to go down to AAA. This was about 2 weeks ago and figure out his offensive issues.
So
But
you want to even platoon like, hey, you're a defensive guy and
you're
center.
not going to platoon with the number one prospect in baseball. You want him to
Mhm.
play 5 days a week at least,
Yeah.
because you don't want to stunt his development. He's 20 years old. So worst case scenario, you leave him in AAA a little longer to marinate and just get at bats, which is totally fine. So right now, I think there's nowhere to really to put these guys. Ultimate, if unless you ultimately decide to put Rafi at first base, and then the DH spot opens up, and then you rotate guys between outfield spots and DH, then I can see Roman coming up if he's getting every day at bats. If he's not getting every day at bats, he will not be in the big
Yeah.
leagues. You just cannot do that to his development.
And Core's been adamant about that. That's why he said that all throughout spring training when everyone thought, would these guys crack the opening day roster? And he said, hey, look, like the only way these guys gonna be up in the majors is if they're, like you've said, playing every day. So
Yeah. Yeah, you don't bring big top prospects up to be like 3 day a week players
yeah.
because that hurts their future. And
Yeah.
those are two guys that you're going to build your future around.
Yeah, and with those guys, obviously, and I know you hate this label, but you were a former number one prospect in the Red Sox organization. What's kind of the mindset of Mayer and Anthony? Are they like, is it like, hey, let's just continue to prove like we belong there, like just
No,
take it day by
I
day?
think
Like
they're mature beyond their years, and
I was just about to say that too. You've
I think
lauded,
the
everyone's talked about whether it's
yeah
Bregman in spring training, everyone's lauded their on-field skills, obviously, but more kind of importantly, their maturity on how
yeah,
they've
and I think
handled
the Red
everything.
Sox organization has done a really good job of being transparent with them and saying, look, here's where you're at. This is what it's going to take. They don't want them just like every day, like is the day to day, is the
Yeah.
today the day. Like they want them, hey, just go play ball. You're going to be a
Hmm.
big leaguer. Certain things have to happen. We're not going to force it. We're not going to bring you up too early. We're not go get your work in, and you have to continue to get better every day because you don't want these guys seeing the prospect status and thinking I made it. Like I'm a dude. Thank you.
Hmm.
You can be a dude in the minor leagues all you want. Doesn't matter. Doesn't. It's a different beast when you get to the big leagues, and there will be a
Yeah.
learning curve. As good as those guys are, they will struggle in the big leagues at some point. Everyone does. Hall of Famers get to the big leagues. They struggle. There's a learning curve. Remember when Dustin Pedroia came up?
Oh yeah, tough start for
Got his
him.
ass kicked, right? And then the famous quote, then what happened? Laser show, right?
Yeah.
Rookie of the year, MVP, one of the best players to wear the Red Sox uniform. So these guys are going to be good players. Don't get me wrong. I'm not combating that. These are really good baseball players, and they're going to be good for a long time. And the Red Sox are lucky to have them. Their time is just going to have to wait just a little longer, and that's a very good problem for this organization to have.
You just legit stole the words. I was just about to say, good problem for the organization to have. I'm sure, everyone's chomping at the bit. They're just going to have to, wait a little bit while longer. But while we're talking about kind of questions that the Red Sox are facing, obviously the first base situation, like we just talked about, is a big question mark. But what's kind of your other big question mark now as we get into the middle of May? I have one. I want to see if you have the same one as me, though.
For me, well, I have two. I'll say one quickly, and then I'll say what my real one is.
Okay.
I would say the catcher position.
Okay, that
Um,
wasn't mine.
and
I have
I wouldn't say it's a question. It's more just like how they're going to handle it with
him.
Connor
Yep,
Wong, because right now Narvaez is the guy. He needs to play 5 days a week.
yep,
He defensively is a better player. I mean, that shows in the metrics. He's arguably
yep.
one of the best defensive catchers based off the metrics in baseball. Him and William Contreras. So as far as defensive run saves, blocking, framing, which is still
Hmm.
important with no ABS system. Um, so I think I mean, this is 2 series in a row that he's caught 2 out of 3, and he's continues to earn it with not only his offensive ability but behind the plate. But so my biggest question is solidifying the seventh and eighth inning roles.
That bullpen was mine. Yep,
Yeah, seventh and eighth inning, right? It's like the middle relief. I thought Justin Wilson looked really good yesterday, but this comes down to Slayton, Weissert, and Whitlock, right? Because Slayton and
yep,
Whitlock went through a little rut there. Tough
yep.
couple outings. We saw Slayton, obviously the homer to Vladdy in Toronto, which kind of capped off a really ugly loss that game. Um, they're going through some stuff, with pitch shape and mechanics and trying to repeat the delivery. And I think they're going to be totally fine. We've seen them recently come out of the pen and look much better. But for
And
the
it's a
time
long
being,
season too, right? They're
it
going
is. And
ebbs
this is
and
kind of the
flows
point
for
of the year.
relievers.
This is the point of the year, too, where some arms hit kind of a fatigue wall. And then they get their second wind and they go about the rest of the season. There is a third wind later, in July and August. But um, right now, it's kind of that point where you see guys get a little tired. You see velo tick down a little bit. You see with some guys, you see some command issues. You see with Slayton, his curveball not being as sharp, not as good. Um, and then they're going to snap back into it and be just fine. I think Weissert has been very good. You go all the way back to like last August, I think. I don't remember the exact numbers. It was like 31 of 33 appearances or something more scoreless.
Wow.
So he's been really good. And the two that he gave up runs, I think, were earlier this year, but he's been in such a good spot that they've been able to switch him and Slayton and use Weissert in the high leverage situations because of how good he's been. His fastball's been phenomenal against righties. So he hadn't had to lean as heavy on the breaking ball, which is really good. We saw his fastball pretty good yesterday. Even at 92, it plays 93. So he's been good. But I think Slayton and Whitlock are your kickers and not problems but just questions, right? Are they going to get back to who they think they are? Is Whitlock just going to be a 1 inning guy, or are they going to stick with a 2 inning thing? Because I felt like
Hmm.
that was kind of wearing him out a little bit, and it makes him not as available when you go 2 innings because then he's got to sit for a couple days. So
I think it's too like with a guy like Whitlock, you see him struggle just a little bit, and it's like feels like the sky's falling because sometimes he can be so dominant and so
yeah,
efficient when he is dominant that when he does give up a couple hits, you're like, what's wrong with this guy? When it's like, hey,
yeah,
he's gonna
it's
he's human,
so
right? He's gonna give
it's
up
so
a hit or
command
two.
dependent with him.
Yeah.
His slider's a really good pitch. His changeup can be, but like it all falls back on his fastball command.
Hmm.
Is he 0-1 or is he 1-0? Because that changes the numbers drastically when you start looking at the results. So getting strike one is huge for him and establishing that fastball. So I think he'll be fine. If I was starting to think maybe something was up with him physically because he
Yeah,
didn't look like himself. Um,
I agree. Yeah.
so that's kind of just something to follow, but I think those guys are going to be fine. I think that I honestly I know the record says 22 and 20. Um, there's been 10 one-run losses.
The
So, and
one
I
run
think a
games have
lot,
not been
and
pretty
I
for
think a
them.
lot of that comes back to this part of the bullpen.
Yeah.
So, and something that's kind of a gut punch is, um, so what is 10 one-run losses? They've had 9 blown lead losses, and 7 of them have come in those one-run losses.
That's record
So,
could look a lot
and a
different.
lot of that has to do, yeah, they could totally be 7, probably 7 games over, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Realistically, games that you look back and you're like, geez, how do you lose that? Now that's baseball. I get it.
Yeah.
Like that's part of the game. Every team goes through it. Every team can go through and be like, man, if we just won that one-run game that we gave up a lead in the seventh, but that's part of the game. How many games have we taken? We've had several comeback wins just like that. So that's baseball. I think ultimately this is a good team. You're 2 games back of the Yankees. And right now, honestly, it's just staying in striking distance until you get hot. Like when are they going to rattle off 15 to 20? Because it's got to
Yep.
come at some point because they're good enough.
Exactly. Yeah. That winning streak, that long winning streak, like you said, when they win 8 of 9, 10 of 15, 15 of 20,
Yeah.
that you feel like with this team that's going to come at some
Well,
point. It's
this
just
is
a
a
matter
tough
of
road
when.
trip right now. I mean, they did a good job. I mean, Kansas City had won like 7
7
straight.
in a row.
It
Yeah.
was like 15 of 17 or something
And it
crazy.
feels like the Red Sox never play good in Kansas City either. That feels
One
like a
thing
weird place.
they also went in there and beat Cole Reagans.
Yeah.
Like
Not
that
easy to
guy's
do.
nasty. Like that and Seth Lugo.
Yeah.
Like
They
these
got
are
great
two
pitching, huh?
they're two really good arms. Seth Lugo was second in Cy Young last year. We don't realize that. He
Yep.
got second in Cy Young behind Tarek Skubal. So
Crazy.
he throws 10 pitches, which is absolutely absurd. Like, it's crazy. It's a tough at bat, but that was a really good series. And then they're going to be tested this. I think this is the best team in the American League, not the Yankees. I think it's the Detroit Tigers.
Okay.
And you get Skubal game 3. You get Dobbins against Skubal. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Dobbins will have to have an extra Dr. Pepper that day to get him
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
for
Yeah. Yeah.
to get him up. But let's go around the bases now with Will, our segment where we pick Will's brain and get an MLB player's perspective on all things baseball, past, future, present. So Will, I wanted to talk to you about kind of a daily routine for a baseball player because I feel like a lot of fans think about these guys just show up at the ballpark, they put their uniform on, they hit kind of like it's like high school and like little league, and that's completely not the case. So yeah, if you could take people in through kind of like what a day looks like for a big leaguer.
Um, it's a long process. I don't think they get there quite as early as we did. I mean, we were there like 12:30 or 1. Some guys
Wow.
do. So it depends on what you have to do that day. So not
And you're
every
talking about a 7 o'clock start
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. So normally if you have to lift, if you have to work out for a position player, I can't really speak for pitchers because I kind of I never lived that life, thank God. Um, so I would get there around 1. If I needed to lift, or I would get my lift in then because I didn't want to lift too close to the game because
Yeah.
you're tight, you're tired. But if you're lifting consistently, you'll say 3 days a week or at least 2 days once you get into the dog days of the season just to stay strong. You're not getting sore, but you don't want to be fatigued right before the game. And when you get like a pump, like you get a workout in, like
Yeah.
you feel off a little bit. So you don't want to do that too close to game time. So you normally go in and do that around 1:30, eat some lunch after that. Then I like to go into like video work. Like, so I'm going to go in and watch my at bats against that day starting pitchers. If I had faced him in the past, I want to see how he got me out, how I was successful, and then can kind of build my plan and my approach. Like this guy's got a really good two-seamer and slider. He likes to rush me in, and we'll say 2-0 counts. He likes to throw me sliders. So in back of my mind, I'm like, okay, I'm building this plan. Okay, 2-0, I'm going to sit sliders. So sometimes you'll see a guy take like a fastball right down the middle, 2-0 against a guy. Well, his preparation told him in the past, this guy's gotten me out with a 2-0 slider. I'm going to sit on
Hmm.
him. And you might not get it. You might get it. You might not. If you get it, that's why sometimes you see a guy hammer a pitch and you're like, how was he ready for that?
Video work.
Preparation, doing your homework. So you go in, watch some video, watch some at bats. You look at some of their bullpen guys that might be your matchups. If you're not starting, you go in and look at the bullpen guys that are like, all right, this is my pocket. These are my lefties. If they come in, I'm going to get those at bats. And you start same process. Have I faced them before? All right, I've watched how I faced him in the past. Now I'm going to watch his most recent outings. If it's a starter, watch his last start that he was good
Hmm.
because a lot of guys like to go back. Oh, if I was good here, I'm going to go do similar things. Um, then bullpen guys, you go watch their like last 2 or 3 outings. Um, Then from there, I'm going to go in the cage. And I like to build my cage work on my approach that day. So you have certain things you do every day, certain tee routines, certain flips. But let's say whoever I'm facing, let's say I'm facing Scherzer, just to throw a name out there. I'm going to work fastballs in because he likes two seamers into me. And then I'm going to work on a timing drill with a guy doing flips or whatever, where he kind of like mixes in some slower ones, which tells me that's the slider. And I kind of stay back through the ball, hit it the other way.
Hmm.
Just a weight exchange transition type thing. So I'd like to build my cage work off of my approach that day of who I'm facing. From that, you're getting closer to batting practice. You're normally going to do early ground balls. So I'm going to go out and take my infield work, get all that in. Then you're going to come in, get ready, go out, take batting practice. You're going to the normal batting practice that everyone sees.
Yeah.
At this point, I mean, there's a lot of stuff in between that goes on with like talking to teammates and hanging out, whatever. But most of
Yeah.
the time you're there, you're working. I also left out if you need to get work done in the training room, which is pretty normal, you're gonna get like a hamstring rubbed out or worked on or stretched or some type of treatment. You go in and do that pretty early so you can go about your day and feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Batting practice, you come in. Um, I like to eat and then I would take a shower just to feel like fresh, put on the game uni, go kick some ass.
Long day. And then you got
It's a long
that.
day, but it's also you're doing what you love,
Yeah. And then you
you
got a
know?
3 hour game, maybe a post game media avail afterwards. And then, like, I always thought about this too. Were you a type of guy who, like, got home, went to bed right away, or you have to,
Oh,
like,
heck no,
unwind a
dude.
little bit?
Heck no. I would normally go back, um, probably watch my at bats,
Okay.
and maybe even like I like to watch around the league too. So I like turn on like MLB Network or ESPN or
Yeah.
something, just to see what else is going around baseball. Just because I was kind of a junkie, like I just love the game. I am,
Yeah.
but uh, just to see what's going around the league, and then I would kind of just what would help me turn the page every night is I would see okay who's pitching tomorrow for them.
Okay.
And then I wouldn't really watch video on them yet till the next day, but I would just start thinking because if I'd faced them before, if I'd seen them before, just kind of get my mind in that direction, and then I go to bed, and then wake up the next day, do it all over again.
Long days, long days. And then you think about that's 162 days a year plus spring training.
Oh yeah,
Th- That's a
but
grind.
that's the beauty of a routine though is you kind of look forward to the routine because it's like your comfort blanket. It's like, okay, I know what I'm gonna go do for sure tomorrow. I'll tweak it a little bit when I get there when I see, am I in the lineup? Am I, where am I playing defensively? Um, yeah, like who am I facing? How am I gonna build my
Hmm.
routine in the cage? And there's a comfort in the work. And you go in and
Hmm.
you know you're gonna get your work in.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Now, how does that routine that you have now that you've flipped over to the dark side, the media side, how is your routine different? Same? Because I think I saw an Instagram video of you once. You're in your hotel room. You're banging out like prep work at like midnight after a game. Getting ready for the next day.
It is. I've simplified it a bit. I mean, obviously, it's way different than a player. It's not as crazy. And now this year, being around the team for just about every day, it's not as hard prepping because I know
Yeah,
everything that's going on. Like, there's nothing you can ask me about this team that's gonna
yeah.
stump me. Like, I literally watch them every day and I study them, and because I feel like I owe that to the fans to put in the work to be able to talk on the broadcast in a certain way and explain things truthfully and honestly and give you true experience from my playing days and to explain the game because that's my job. And so I take pride in that. So I do take pride in the prep. A daily routine for me, I'll get up. I will start going through notes. I always start with starting pitchers. All right, here are my starting pitchers. I like to go on Baseball Savant and look at their pitch profiles, their pitches they use, their percentages. Um, I watch video to understand like the movements and sequencing, how they like to pitch guys. So a lot of it is kind of similar to a
I was
player
gonna say that
as
sounds
far as
similar, right?
studying goes. But that helps me explain. And then you'll hear sometimes in games where I'm like, all right, this 2-1 count against a lefty. He loves. I know he just buried a slider down and in. He's gonna go fastball up and away right here. And if you hear
Hmm.
me say things like that, it's because I've watched the video, I've watched their starts, I've looked at the percentages, and I believe like that's what they like to do. So that's why I like to forecast things because it's not a guess. It
Yeah.
is it is purely based off of my studying and on watching those guys. So
Mhm.
I'll do that. I'll go to Fangraphs and look at a lot of splits as far as like versus righties, lefties, leverage situations, home versus away, 2-0 counts. We know like all these things broken down and have them at my fingertips. So in the game, I can refer to that just to further help me explain the game to the viewers. So I love that work. It's just like I said, part of my routine. My routine's just
Yep.
a little different in a hotel room and not in a clubhouse anymore. But I'll continue it once I get to the stadium. Once I get to the stadium, we get there in time. We'll go down in the clubhouse for a little bit, talk to the guys. Cora will
Yep.
talk to us. Um, then I'll go up to the booth once they can pry me away from batting practice. I love going down there and just like watching big leaguers take infield and hit because I love it. And so I get up to the booth. We start figuring out our open, what we're going to
Yep.
talk about. We'll get on the phone with our producer and talk through that. Do our open. I'll get my lineups and everything set on my computer and just kind of get everything in order for the game to start. And I'll have everything right in front of me.
And then that's when the lights are on and
Yeah.
you're there locked in for the next, like we said, 2.5, 3 hours now. But again, that's pretty cool. Again, I think it just what you just said reinforces that you don't just show up and kind of, just have the game. It's a whole
No, and
process,
you know
right?
what? It's a blessing and a curse working in this market in Boston because I love it, but like you have to be good at your job
Yeah,
because
you got to
no
know your
one
stuff.
they see through BS. They know if you're not prepared and you haven't done your homework and they'll call you out on it, and I love it. I love it because test me because
Yeah,
I know it because I put the work in. So like, but I love it because that means our fan base cares
yeah.
and they watch every day and they're studying right along with me. So it fires me up.
Yeah. Awesome. We love. I know as a someone who watches the games, we love having you on the call. Switching gears a little bit to kind of again, kind of what a big league kind of moment is like, or being a big leaguer. Do you remember what your welcome to the big leagues moment was? Was
For
there something that
sure.
was just like, oh damn, this is different?
No, my first big league homer.
Okay.
So this is there's levels to this. So May
It
6,
was right. I was
2012.
gonna say it was right around this time of year, right?
Yeah, it was May 6, 2012. It was a grand slam. It was a first pitch curveball from Tommy Hunter. Um, And it's one of the, hear people say like, oh, I was floating around the bases. Literally the feeling I had. Like I got a first pitch curveball and I destroyed this ball. Like this ball, I felt like went over the lights at Fenway. No, seriously. It cleared Lansdowne and it went in the parking lot on the buildings across the street.
Yep.
And there was a security guard up there. And in the video, if you look it up on YouTube or whatever, you see like a security guard running into the back, like behind the cars to get the ball, and he brought it over. So I have the
Oh, nice.
yeah. So I hit that. I'm floating around the bases. I'm doing my best to like soak it in, like the crowd noise, um, seeing the other players as I round the bases, and like see the crowd. And then I look up as I'm coming down the third baseline, like high five third base coach, and I get to home plate and I look up. I'm like 20 feet from home plate, and David Ortiz is standing at home plate. I'll send you the picture after this. And
Perfect.
David Ortiz is and like chest bumps me and like hit home plate.
Yep.
And it so fast forward a little bit. So that tied the game at 5 in the fifth inning, I think. And we go on to play like 15 innings. All right. And I don't know if you remember this game because you were probably in college, but um, Darnell McDonald ended up coming in to pitch. We were out of pitchers.
Oh my.
So Darnell McDonald came in and gave up a homer to Adam Jones to left field, and then we ended up
Oh,
losing. So, but that was
jeez.
a getaway day. We were going to my first big league road trip. So we're going to Kansas City, and it was started as like a 135 game. So we were going to get out of there for a while. End up playing like a 5 hour game. Five. So we end up
That's some
getting to
old school baseball.
Kansas City a lot later. And my first big league trip, we land in Kansas City. We get on the bus to go to the airport, and they call me to the front of the bus to sing a song on the mic because I'm the only guy with like no service time. This is an
Yeah.
old team, and they're roasting me. I mean, they're killing me. I'm singing songs, and then they're booing me because it's my fault we're getting in so late to Kansas City because I tied the game up. and just give me a hard time. But like, I remember getting to my hotel room and like taking a deep breath, going, "That was an awesome day."
Yeah,
Like big league homer, big Poppy waiting for me at home plate. I'll send you the picture because it's really cool.
that's
And
sick.
and then just the team just ragging me because I'm the reason that we got it. Was just it was awesome. And that was when I
Dream.
was like, this is the show. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, as you said, you're obviously in Detroit as well. Big series on tap for the Red Sox, but you being in Detroit has to bring back memories of the 2013
Oh
American
my
League
God.
Championship Series. And I know everyone talks about, the game two Ortiz home run, rightfully so. One of, such an epic, legendary moment. But there's got to be some other moments from that series that are less talked about that stands out. I was just wondering, what's a memory, a good story you have from that series outside of that Ortiz homer?
Oh man. Okay, so that's tough. Obviously, the Poppy Grand Slam is what stands out. Um, so that was game two. But okay, so Napoli's homer in Detroit off Verlander. So that was game three. And that was a seventh inning. It was 0-0. It was a 3-2 count, 96-mile-per-hour heater. Verlander's just shoving.
Yep.
And Napoli
Prime Verlander too.
yeah, prime, like 100-mile-an-hour Verlander. And 3-2 fastball in the seventh inning. Boom, homer. We go up 1-0. Lackey was nails. He went 6 and 2/3. I'm pretty sure I want to say he punched out like 8 or 9 guys. But Breslow came in relief of Lackey in that game, um, which is kind of crazy to think because
Yeah.
he's the GM now. But um, there's something else in game three that a lot of people forget about. So game three in the second inning, we had like a 20-minute delay. Do you remember that?
No, I don't know. What
Okay.
what
It
happened?
was an electrical issue in the stadium. Like the scoreboard went black, the video banners around the stadium like blacked out.
Oh
And
wow.
we were just sitting there for like 20 minutes. Like, they're gonna let us play? Like, we don't need a scoreboard. Like, let's just play. We were pissed at that point. And they ended up, it was like 20 minutes. They got it back on and we went about it. But if you think about that entire series was insane. All right,
Crazy
we
series.
got one hit in game one.
Yep.
Struck
Almost
out
got.
like we struck out 17 times in that game.
Was that Annabelle Sanchez
That was
on the
Anibal
mound?
Sanchez. He struck out. So, dude, I'm telling you, he was the nastiest of all those guys. Verlander, Scherzer. He was so good that series. So he struck out 12 in 6 innings, but he also walked like 6 guys.
Yep.
So they had to pull him because in like the sixth because he had like 120 pitches already. Thank God. Like I think his stuff was just so good. It was moving so much, like he
Yep.
couldn't control it, you know? So I think one out in the ninth, Daniel Nava hit a single off of Joaquin Benoit to break it up. And I remember Quentin Berry pinch ran for him, stole second. We're thinking, dude, we're about to tie this up. And I think
Oh,
Xander popped up to short or second to end it. But fast
yeah.
forward to game six, because I have to talk about game six, the clincher. Like, we're down 2-1 in the seventh. They're pitching well again. That was a Buchholz versus Scherzer. They were both like dialed in through like five, and then
Yeah.
stuff started happening. But Victorino was 2 for 23 going into that at bat that he hit that massive grand slam. It was like an
Yeah.
0-2 curveball from Jose Veras. And obviously that put us up 5-2. Breslow came in the eighth, threw like a perfect eighth, and then Koji closed it out, and then on to the World Series we went. So I can remember all those details, but like I can't tell you what I had for dinner last night. Like
Yeah.
I Jenny always makes fun of me. She's like, "You're telling me like a 2-1 pitch, like the spin on this and that." She's like, "You don't even know where your keys are to your truck."
Yeah.
But like some of
2013.
these things are just burnt in your mind, you know?
Oh,
And
absolutely. The Victorino stuff was crazy because he was what? He was like
righty.
a switch hitter, and then he
Yeah.
just was it late in the season or in the playoffs he
Yeah,
decided.
he like had some issues with like one of his thumbs, so it hurt when he hit lefty. And
Okay.
instead of like, and he didn't want to be like a platoon guy. Part of what kept him on the field obviously was defense, and right field was
Yeah.
phenomenal. Um, but the ability to hit both pitchers because righty lefty because he's a switch
Yep.
hitter. But um, he's like, I'm only gonna be able to hit righty, but like stick with me. And they kind of abused him because of that. He was like I said, two for 22, 2 for 23 in that series leading up to that bat and hit that grand slam off a righty. Jose Veras 0-2 breaking ball. I'll never forget hanging and then him
Right.
running around throwing up the shakas
Yeah.
around the bases and like losing his mind. That was
He
man,
became
I
like
have
a
chills.
cult.
I have chills right now. Like
He
I love
became like a
this.
cult hero that playoffs with
Dude,
his
he was
walk-up
so
song.
good. He was so clutch. Him, Johnny Gums homer in um
Was that game 4 of the World Series game? Is that what you're
4
talking
and
about?
yeah, yeah, it was off of Seth Manus, whoever righty came in. And that probably should have been someone else's at bat. But
Hmm.
it's just a gut feeling, which John Farrell was pretty good with those guys. And there's times when Johnny's walking in the dugout. Hey, Coach John, if you want to win, put me in.
Yeah.
I'll end this. Like he got that at bat, hit that homer. He's like screaming and drooling around the bases because it's Johnny Gomes, and it's just
Yeah.
like the passion of that team, man. It's just crazy.
Great.
There's
Well, you
nobody on earth that could have beat us.
yeah, hey, and nobody did, right? You guys got the rings
We
to
shouldn't have beat the
prove it.
Tigers. I shouldn't say we shouldn't have beat them,
They were loaded.
but they were loaded pitching wise, and
That's
it
like
was
the
just one
Miggy
of those things where
Cabrera
like,
Tigers, right?
huh?
That was the Miggy Cabrera Tigers, right?
Yeah, Prince
Like
Fielder.
in his prime too. Talk about a guy in his prime.
Dude, one of the best right-handed batters I've ever seen. So, yeah, man, good times. I love when you bring this stuff up because it fires me up and gets my day going on the right foot.
Well, you'll get to relive it this week when you're at Comerica Park taking in Tigers, Sox. But
No doubt.
that's going to do it for another episode of Sox Talk with Will Middlebrooks. Make sure you check us out on YouTube and NESN.com. Will, as always, thanks so much for
Of course,
joining
man.
us, and we'll catch up again soon.